What's the scariest theory you've heard about aliens? Story 1. Honestly, I think the scariest alien theory is the fact that we know absolutely nothing. People always imagine aliens as either super friendly space diplomats or little green dudes flying around in metal saucers. But realistically, if something out there actually evolved millions of years ahead of us, we probably wouldn't even be able to understand what we were looking at. Like, imagine trying to explain human society, politics, religion, or the internet to an ant colony. That's probably the gap between us and them. And that's what freaks me out the most. We assume aliens would want to communicate or make peace. But what if we're just completely beneath their attention? Not even worth invading. Not even worth talking to. Just another primitive species crawling around on a random planet. But then there's the other possibility, which is somehow even worse. What if they finally do make contact, and they turn out to be something straight out of cosmic horror? Not humanoid, not relatable, just some horrifying biological nightmare that spreads across planets harvesting life like it's nothing. Basically the Brethren Moons from Dead Space, or some Lovecraftian nightmare fuel drifting through space. Imagine humanity spending decades trying to send signals into the universe, only to accidentally ring the dinner bell for something ancient and monstrous. That's why the Great Silence Theory terrifies me too. Maybe the reason space seems so empty isn't because intelligent life is rare. Maybe it's because every civilization eventually learns there's something out there you do not want noticing you. And honestly, maybe staying quiet is the smartest thing humanity has ever done. Story 2. One of the creepiest alien theories I've ever heard is the idea that humanity is basically being farmed for loosh inside some kind of simulated reality. And the more you think about it, the worse it gets. The theory comes from this idea that human emotions, especially suffering, fear, pain, grief, and conflict, produce some kind of energy called loosh. Supposedly, higher dimensional beings, or aliens, feed off of it the same way we farm animals for food. According to the theory, that's the real reason human history is just endless cycles of war, misery, disease, corruption, and chaos. We're not progressing toward anything. We're being cultivated. What makes it terrifying isn't just the alien part. It's the possibility that reality itself is fake. Like, imagine every major event in history, every tragedy, every disaster, every horrible thing people go through. All of it exists because something behind the curtain benefits from our suffering. Not because life is random, but because pain is literally the product. And the simulation angle makes it even darker. If this reality is artificial, then there may not even be an escape. Death might not free you. You could just get recycled back into the system over and over again without realizing it. Same consciousness, different life, still generating loosh for whatever's running the machine. The theory honestly sounds insane at first, but then you look at how absurdly brutal human existence can be sometimes, and your brain starts connecting dots you probably shouldn't connect. That's the part that sticks with you, not the aliens themselves. The idea that humanity might exist for something else's consumption. Story 3. Forget the blurry cave videos and fake UFO clips for a second. One of the strangest things I've ever read about is that old German newsletter from the 1500s that supposedly describes shapes fighting in the sky over a city. And the weird part is, it actually existed. Back in 1561, people in Nuremberg reported seeing this massive aerial phenomenon at sunrise. According to the old broadsheet documenting it, the sky was filled with strange objects, spheres, crosses, cylinders, and giant black spear-shaped things, all moving around and apparently battling each other. Witnesses claimed the objects were darting across the sky, crashing, and falling to Earth outside the city. The illustration that came with the report looks completely insane, too. It literally looks like someone tried to draw a sci-fi space battle hundreds of years before planes even existed. What creeps me out is trying to imagine how people back then processed something like that. These were medieval-era citizens with zero concept of aircraft, drones, satellites, or modern technology. So, whatever they saw had to be interpreted through religion or omens. Some people thought it was a warning from God. Others thought it meant the apocalypse was coming. But imagine if they actually did witness something real. Not aliens visiting us peacefully, but two completely unknown forces fighting each other in Earth's atmosphere, while humans below had absolutely no clue what they were looking at. That idea honestly messes with me more than most alien stories. Humanity could have been spectators to something massive and incomprehensible without even realizing it. And the craziest part? We still can't explain what people actually saw that morning. Story 4. One alien theory that genuinely creeps me out is the idea that they're already here, just deep in our oceans, where we can't really do anything about it. People always focus on space, but the ocean is basically an alien world already. We've explored more of the moon than our own seabeds. There are entire regions underwater humans still barely understand. Trenches deeper than Mount Everest are tall, and creatures down there that already look like they came from another planet. So the idea that something intelligent could exist down there without us fully knowing, honestly, doesn't even sound that impossible anymore. What makes the theory unsettling is that it doesn't require some giant invasion movie scenario. They wouldn't need to attack us or announce themselves. They could have been here the entire time, watching humanity develop the same way we watch animals through glass at an aquarium, completely aware of us while we know almost nothing about them. And if they're technologically advanced enough to survive permanently underwater, especially in the deepest parts of the ocean, then we'd probably be helpless against them anyway. Humans can barely function in deep-sea environments for extended periods without insanely specialized equipment. That's their territory, not ours. The creepy part is imagining that someday the balance changes. Maybe humanity expands too far into the oceans. Maybe we start mining in the wrong place or building in areas we shouldn't. Then suddenly these things that stayed hidden for thousands of years are forced into public view. Not even necessarily evil either, just another intelligent species realizing humans are becoming a problem. I think that's scarier than aliens crossing the galaxy to invade Earth. The idea that they've always been here, underneath us, silently sharing the planet the entire time. Story 5. The dark forest theory is probably the only alien theory that actually makes me uneasy when I think about it too long. The basic idea is horrifyingly simple. The universe is like a giant dark forest where every civilization is hiding quietly because making noise is basically suicide. You don't know who's out there. You don't know their intentions. And the problem is, by the time you discover another civilization is hostile, it's already too late. So the safest move for everyone is to stay silent and eliminate anything that reveals its location. Not out of evil, necessarily, but pure survival. And then you look at humanity. We've basically been screaming our location into space for decades. Radio broadcasts, satellite signals, military radar, deliberate messages aimed at distant stars. We've been sending stuff out there almost carelessly. Then there's the Voyager Golden Record, which is somehow even crazier when you really think about it. Humanity literally launched a probe carrying information about our species, our biology, our music, our location in the solar system, and directions on how to find Earth. Like we're out here leaving our address attached to a glowing sign in the middle of the woods, hoping whatever finds it is friendly. That's what keeps me up sometimes. Not the idea of aliens invading Independence Day style, but the possibility that every advanced civilization learned a lesson we haven't learned yet. Stay quiet, because if the dark forest theory is true, the silence of the universe suddenly stops being comforting. It becomes a warning, and humanity might have already done the one thing you're never supposed to do. We answered back. Story 6. Humans like to assume we see the world as it actually is, but biologically, that's probably not true at all. Evolution doesn't care about showing us objective reality. It only cares about survival. Our brains evolved to filter information down into the tiny amount we need to function without going insane. We can only see a microscopic fraction of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't naturally detect radiation, magnetic fields, or countless things other animals can sense easily. So, who's to say there aren't things all around us that we simply evolved to ignore because noticing them would be catastrophic? That idea genuinely freaks me out. Imagine if there are entities, intelligences, or entire layers of reality existing right beside us constantly, but human consciousness automatically edits them out the same way your brain ignores your nose sitting in your field of vision. Not because they aren't there, but because perceiving them would have been a survival disadvantage at some point in evolution. And the scariest possibility is that the filter could be intentional. Maybe ancient humans did perceive these things once. Maybe those who noticed them panicked, stopped functioning, or died. So over thousands of generations, the brain adapted by shutting that awareness off completely. Natural selection literally protects us from seeing what's actually out there. It turns reality itself into something untrustworthy, like humanity is living inside a heavily censored version of existence, while something incomprehensible sits just outside the edges of perception. And we'd never know, because the very thing keeping us sane could also be keeping us blind. Story 7. The whole Nordic alien connection tied to Germany. Not because I think it's real necessarily, but because of how weirdly detailed and unsettling the stories get once you start reading about them. The theory basically claims that high-ranking members of Germany were allegedly in contact with tall, human-looking extraterrestrials often described as Nordics. Blonde hair, pale skin, almost unnaturally perfect features. Beings that supposedly viewed themselves as superior to humanity and pushed ideas about genetic purity and the concept of a master race. According to the conspiracy, these entities weren't just advanced technologically, but psychologically too, with abilities involving hypnosis, manipulation, and influence over human leaders. And honestly, the unsettling part isn't even the alien angle. It's the implication that humanity's worst ideologies didn't originate entirely from humanity. The theory says Germany lost the war publicly, but whatever connection existed never disappeared. Instead, it supposedly went underground. The idea is that these beings continue influencing powerful figures around the world behind the scenes, trading technology, wealth, power, or knowledge in exchange for control and long-term influence over civilization. It starts sounding less like a sci-fi alien story and more like cosmic corruption, like humanity is unknowingly being guided by something that sees us as livestock or tools rather than equals. What really makes the theory stick in people's minds is how it mixes real history with paranormal horror. Secret Antarctic bases, occult experiments, missing technology, mysterious post-war disappearances. It creates this feeling that Maybe history only tells us the surface level version of what actually happened. And if even 1% of it were true, that's genuinely terrifying. Story 8. The idea is that advanced civilizations aren't flying around the galaxy looking for war or conquest at all. They're hiding, completely intentionally. The theory is that any species advanced enough to survive long-term eventually realizes the universe is probably dangerous beyond comprehension. So instead of broadcasting their existence, they stay silent, avoid contact, and do everything possible not to be noticed. Which, honestly, makes a disturbing amount of sense. Humans assume intelligent life would naturally explore and communicate. But maybe that's just because we're still naive enough to think the universe is welcoming. And then there's the even stranger part of the theory. UFOs and unexplained aerial phenomena might not actually be extraterrestrial spacecraft traveling across space. They could be interdimensional explorers. That idea genuinely messes with my head. Because if something is interdimensional instead of extraterrestrial, it changes everything. It means these things may not be coming from another planet, millions of light years away. They could exist alongside us right now, in some adjacent layer of reality we can't fully perceive, occasionally crossing over, observing, or interacting with our world briefly before disappearing again. Which weirdly explains why so many sightings seem to ignore the laws of physics entirely. Objects moving silently at impossible speeds, changing direction instantly, appearing and vanishing without explanation. Maybe they aren't traveling the way we think they are. Maybe they're slipping between realities. The scariest part is imagining that these entities have no interest in us whatsoever beyond observation. Like humans watching animals through binoculars, not enemies, not allies, just vastly older intelligences peeking into our reality occasionally while making sure humanity never gets close enough to fully understand what they are. And maybe the reason they hide so carefully is because something even worse is out there looking for them too. Story 9. Honestly, I think this is one of the most realistic and terrifying alien theories out there because it completely destroys the comforting idea that advanced civilizations would automatically see humanity as important. People always picture aliens as either friendly mentors or evil conquerors. But what if they're neither? What if we barely even register to them? The comparison that always sticks with me is humans dealing with a wasp nest. Most people don't passionately hate wasps. They're not sitting around plotting against them. But if a nest gets built too close to the house, people wipe it out without a second thought because it's inconvenient. That's it. No emotion. No moral dilemma. Just a minor problem being removed. Now imagine a civilization millions of years more advanced than humanity looking at us the same way. That's what makes it scary. Not hatred, indifference. We like to think intelligence naturally leads to empathy or enlightenment, but nature doesn't really work that way. Humans already bulldoze forests, wipe out species, poison ocean, and reshape entire ecosystems without fully caring about the life forms caught in the middle. Not because we're evil, necessarily, but because our goals matter more to us than theirs do. So if aliens reached Earth for resources, expansion, experimentation, or even something we can't comprehend, humanity might just become collateral damage. Not worth communicating with, not worth explaining anything to, just another species occupying useful territory. And honestly, from their perspective, they might not even see it as cruelty. That's the part that unsettles me most. The idea that humanity could face something unimaginably intelligent and powerful, and it wouldn't hate us enough to even acknowledge us as significant. We'd just be in the way. Story 10. Interdimensional reptilian rabbit hole. Not because I fully believe it or anything, but because of how weirdly it blends ancient mythology, spirituality, and modern UFO theories into one giant, unsettling idea. The theory basically says these entities aren't aliens in the traditional sci-fi sense. They're supposedly interdimensional beings that have existed alongside humanity since ancient times, feeding off fear, suffering, chaos, and misery. According to the theory, that's why snakes, dragons, and reptilian creatures show up constantly throughout human history across almost every civilization on Earth. Ancient cultures feared serpent-like beings long before modern conspiracy theories even existed. And honestly, that's the part that gets under my skin. The possibility that mythology wasn't entirely symbolic, that ancient people might have been describing encounters with something they genuinely believed was real. The rabbit hole gets even creepier once people start connecting it to spirituality. You hear stories about leaked government discussions or officials referring to UFO entities as demonic or spiritual rather than extraterrestrial. Not physical beings arriving in ships from another galaxy, but intelligences that exist outside normal human perception entirely. That idea terrifies me way more than little green men in flying saucers. Because if aliens and spirituality are somehow connected, then suddenly reality becomes a lot stranger than we're comfortable admitting. It means consciousness, religion, folklore, paranormal experiences, and UFO phenomena might all be pieces of the same thing humans have been trying to understand for thousands of years. And if these entities really do feed off negativity somehow, then human history starts looking horrifyingly different. Endless wars, suffering, violence, corruption, not random flaws of civilization, but something being cultivated intentionally. That's the kind of theory that sounds ridiculous during the day and deeply unsettling at 3 a.m. Story 11. The theory says advanced civilizations already know something humanity hasn't figured out yet. Drawing attention to yourself in the universe is incredibly dangerous. Somewhere out there are violent species, maybe civilizations, maybe AI, maybe something beyond our understanding entirely, that actively hunt down intelligent life. So every species that survives long enough eventually learns the same lesson. Stay hidden, stay silent, and never broadcast your location, which makes humanity look unbelievably reckless. We've been blasting radio signals into space for decades, sending probes with maps back to Earth, and basically yelling into the cosmos hoping someone answers back. Meanwhile, every other intelligent civilization could be sitting silently in the dark, watching us like idiots lighting a bonfire in the middle of a forest full of predators. That idea genuinely freaks me out because it explains the silence perfectly. Maybe the universe is crowded, but everyone is terrified. And then there's another theory that somehow feels even worse. Humanity has already been noticed, and we're intentionally being isolated. Like, imagine the rest of the universe views Earth the way adults view an unstable, violent child. We fight wars constantly, destroy ecosystems, exploit each other, and build weapons powerful enough to wipe ourselves out repeatedly. From an outside perspective, humanity might look dangerous, immature, and completely untrustworthy. So instead of welcoming us into some larger galactic community, they quarantine us. No contact, no advanced technology, no introduction to what's really out there until humanity changes. Almost like Earth is being left alone intentionally until we evolve socially enough to handle the truth. And honestly, looking at human history, I can kind of understand why they'd make that decision. Story 12. For me, the absolute scariest alien theory is the idea that Earth is basically a soul farm. Not a planet where humanity evolved naturally and built civilization for some greater purpose, but a controlled environment designed to grow consciousness, the same way humans raise livestock. The theory says once the population reaches a certain point, or once enough emotional energy, suffering, or souls have accumulated, the harvest begins. Civilization collapses, mass death follows, and then eventually the cycle starts over again. Rinse and repeat. What makes the theory so disturbing is how uncomfortably familiar the logic is. Humans already do this constantly without questioning it. We breed billions of animals into existence purely for consumption. Entire living creatures born into systems they don't understand, existing only because something more intelligent benefits from them. Most people never stop to think about the morality of it because to us, farm animals are just part of the system. Now flip the perspective. Imagine humanity is the cattle. That's the part that sticks in your head at night. The possibility that every major collapse in human history, plagues, wars, disasters, sudden, unexplained societal resets, could all just be part of recurring harvest cycles we're too small to recognize. Humanity believes it controls Earth, while something vastly older quietly manages the process from behind the scenes. And if the theory were true, we probably wouldn't even be capable of understanding the beings running it. Farmers don't explain themselves to livestock. They don't hate them either. The animals simply exist within a system designed around someone else's needs. That's what makes the theory horrifying to me. Not evil aliens invading Earth, but the possibility that humanity already belongs to something and always has. Story 13. The explanation for the uncanny valley. The reason humans get deeply uncomfortable around things that look almost human, but not quite. The normal explanation is psychological. Our brains notice tiny imperfections in facial expressions, movement, or appearance, and it triggers a fear response. But the darker theory is way worse. What if that instinct exists because, at some point in human history, it was evolutionarily necessary to recognize something pretending to be human? That idea genuinely gets under my skin. Evolution doesn't randomly create strong survival instincts for no reason. Fear responses usually come from real threats repeated over thousands of generations. Heights, snakes, spiders, disease. Humans learned to fear those things because the people who ignored them died. So, if almost human appearances trigger an immediate sense of dread deep in our brains, some people think it could be a leftover survival mechanism from encounters with something that looked human, but wasn't. And honestly, everyone knows the feeling the uncanny valley gives you. A face that's just slightly off, eyes that seem empty, movements that feel unnatural, even if you can't explain why. Your brain notices it instantly before you consciously process it. The terrifying theory is that ancient humans may have shared the world with mimics, interdimensional entities, or some other intelligence capable of imitating people imperfectly. Those who could detect the subtle differences survived. Those who couldn't, didn't, which means the uncanny valley might not just be discomfort. It might be an ancient instinct screaming at you that something in front of you is wearing a human disguise badly enough for your brain to catch it. And the scariest part is wondering whether that instinct is reacting to something that no longer exists, or something that still does. Story 14, Bob Lazar supposedly refers to humans as containers. It's such a simple word, but the implications are horrifying if you really sit and think about it. Containers for what exactly? That's the part that makes the theory stick in your head. Because if an advanced species sees humanity as containers, then they might not even view our bodies as an important part of us. Maybe it's consciousness, maybe souls, maybe some kind of energy or information we don't even understand yet. But the idea instantly changes humanity from being a civilization into being storage units for something more valuable hidden inside us. And honestly, if aliens are real and have been around Earth for a long time, it does raise a weird question. Why haven't they wiped us out? Humans are violent, self-destructive, constantly at war, and technologically primitive compared to what these beings would supposedly be capable of. If we discovered an aggressive species of animals destroying their own environment, we wouldn't exactly view them as enlightened life forms. So, the fact that humanity allegedly continues existing untouched makes some people think we serve a purpose, not partners, not equals, a resource. That's what creeps me out about the container idea. Farmers don't destroy livestock they still need. Scientists don't terminate experiments they're still studying. Maybe humanity persists because something about us matters in a way we don't fully understand. And the darker version of the theory says religions throughout history may have accidentally touched on this idea already. Souls, reincarnation, spiritual ascension, all different attempts to describe whatever humans are supposedly containing. The scariest part is how vague it is, because your imagination fills in the blanks with things far worse than any clear answer ever could. Story 15. One of the wildest alien theories I've ever heard is that aliens aren't actually beings in the normal sense at all. They're supposedly forms of consciousness or energy that exist outside space and time entirely. Interdimensional intelligences rather than physical creatures flying around in metal ships. And honestly, the theory gets unsettling fast. According to the idea, reality is way bigger than what human senses can perceive. Our brains only process this tiny slice of existence, while other layers of reality exist all around us constantly. These entities supposedly inhabit those layers naturally, meaning they wouldn't need spacecraft or planets the way we understand them. They'd exist more like consciousness itself, something capable of interacting with reality without being fully bound by it. The theory also says not all of them are good. Some people describe benevolent entities tied to enlightenment, knowledge, or spiritual experiences, while others describe darker intelligences associated with fear, manipulation, paralysis, or overwhelming dread, which is where the alien theories start colliding with religion, demons, angels, and paranormal experiences in a really creepy way. And then you get into the government research rabbit hole. People point to all the classified experiments involving psychedelics, remote viewing, psychic abilities, telepathy, out-of-body experiences, and altered states of consciousness. MK Ultra, Stargate, all those bizarre programs that sound too insane to be real until you realize parts of them actually existed. The theory claims governments weren't researching psychic phenomena because they were crazy. They were trying to establish contact with something, not through radios or telescopes, but through consciousness itself. That's the part that messes with me most. The idea that contact with aliens might not happen through spaceships landing on Earth one day. It could happen inside the human mind, and maybe it already has. Story 16, the theory goes into this whole ghost DNA concept, where human beings were intentionally engineered as containers meant to split apart and weaken some higher dimensional consciousness. Basically, the God itself. According to the idea, this entity was supposedly too powerful, too dangerous, or too uncontrollable to destroy outright. So instead, it was fragmented and distributed across billions of human souls. Every human life acts like a shard of something infinite. And honestly, the creepy part is how backwards it makes everything feel. Religion usually teaches that humans contain a divine spark because we were created by God. But this theory flips it completely. We weren't blessed with divinity. We were designed as a prison system. The more humanity grows, the more divided and diluted this consciousness becomes. Billions of separate minds, separate egos, separate identities, all unknowingly keeping this entity fragmented and weak, which means human civilization itself could basically function as a containment mechanism on a planetary scale. That idea gets horrifying when you think about consciousness. Moments of enlightenment, near-death experiences, psychic phenomena, spiritual awakenings. The theory claims those might be brief moments where fragments reconnect temporarily. Tiny pieces of the larger consciousness remembering what they actually are. And then there's the darker implication. What happens if humanity ever reconnects completely? Would it create some kind of ascension event? A return to a godlike state? Or would it release something ancient that was never meant to become whole again? That's what makes the theory stick in your brain. It turns human existence into something way stranger than evolution or religion. Like every person on Earth is unknowingly part of a cosmic containment project that's been running since the beginning of civilization. And none of us would ever realize we're the cage. Story 17. That there are no aliens at all. Not because hostile aliens are less terrifying, but because the idea that humanity is completely alone in the universe feels almost existentially crushing. Imagine looking out at billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, endless planets scattered across an incomprehensibly huge cosmos. And somehow we're it, the only intelligent life that ever happened. Just a random accident. That thought genuinely freaks me out more than invasions or cosmic horror theories sometimes. Because if humanity is alone, then consciousness itself might be unbelievably rare. Every emotion, every piece of art, every memory, every civilization, every human who has ever existed could be the only moment in the universe where matter accidentally became aware of itself. And the universe wouldn't care either. No greater meaning, no hidden observers, no ancient civilizations guiding us. Just chemistry randomly organizing itself on one small planet before eventually disappearing forever when humanity goes extinct. The stars would keep burning long after us like nothing ever happened. What makes it even scarier is the silence of space. People usually interpret it as evidence something dangerous is hiding out there. But what if the silence is real? What if every telescope points into the void because there's genuinely nobody else looking back? That would mean humanity carries an insane amount of responsibility. We wouldn't just be protecting our species. We'd be protecting the only intelligent consciousness the universe has ever produced, or ever will produce. And honestly, that thought feels unbearably lonely. Because at least in the scary alien theories, something else exists with us in the dark. This theory says there's only us, and one day there might be nothing at all. Story 18. I think one of the most interesting perspectives in all these alien and cosmic horror discussions is the idea that maybe we shouldn't be terrified at all. There are endless theories out there about hostile aliens, soul farms, interdimensional beings, simulations, and all kinds of nightmare scenarios. But at the end of the day, nobody actually knows what reality fully is. Humanity has always existed surrounded by mystery. We just happen to live in an age where people try to turn every unknown into something horrifying. But some people see it differently. I read someone once say they weren't afraid of death anymore after having a near-death experience. And honestly, that stuck with me more than any alien theory ever did. They described it as peaceful beyond words, like stepping into something familiar and connected instead of frightening. Not necessarily heaven or religion exactly, just this overwhelming feeling that consciousness might be part of something much bigger than individual human lives. And I think that perspective changes everything, because if everything in the universe is connected somehow, then maybe mystery isn't automatically evil. Maybe humanity's obsession with fearing the unknown comes from wanting control over things we were never meant to fully understand. The universe could contain terrifying things, sure, but also beauty, meaning, and experiences beyond human language. The older I get, the more I think people fear death because it's the one door nobody can fully describe from the other side. But maybe it's not a punishment or an ending. Maybe it's just another chapter of existence we can't comprehend yet. Or maybe it really is just eternal sleep. And honestly, sleep doesn't sound so bad either. That's probably the most comforting theory I've heard in the middle of all the darker ones. Story 19. One of the darker alien theories I've heard comes from the stories surrounding Phil Schneider. And honestly, it reads less like normal UFO stuff and more like full-blown cosmic doom lore. The theory basically claims humanity isn't meant to progress beyond a certain point technologically. According to Schneider's story, extraterrestrials or non-human intelligences have supposedly been observing Earth for a very long time, allowing civilizations to advance only up to a controlled limit before hitting some kind of reset. Wars, collapses, catastrophes, extinction events, all allegedly part of recurring cycles designed to stop humanity from becoming an interplanetary species. And what makes the theory unsettling is how it reframes human history. Instead of civilization steadily evolving forward, humanity becomes trapped in loops. Build up too much technology, grow too fast, start reaching beyond Earth. Then something happens that knocks civilization back down again before we can fully break out into the stars. The theory says ancient civilizations may have already reached levels of advancement we barely understand now, only to disappear almost completely. Not because of natural collapse, but because they crossed a line they weren't supposed to cross. According to Schneider's claims, the next reset is supposedly approaching sometime within this century. That's the part that sticks in your head, because suddenly every global crisis starts looking ominous through that lens. Rising instability, AI acceleration, environmental collapse, geopolitical tension, nuclear threats, strange aerial phenomena. It all starts feeling like humanity inching toward a ceiling we aren't allowed to pass. And honestly, the scariest part isn't even the aliens themselves. It's the possibility that humanity has never actually been in control of its own future, that every generation believes it's building towards something permanent, while unknowingly approaching the same wall civilization has hit over and over again for thousands of years. A cycle we were never supposed to escape. Story 20. I've heard of the demiurge theory, the idea that our reality wasn't created by a perfect or loving God, but by a flawed, false creator. Basically, a cosmic architect that trapped consciousness inside an imperfect world full of suffering, conflict, greed, and pain. According to the theory, that's why existence can feel so unfair sometimes. Wars, disease, cruelty, corruption, all symptoms of living inside a broken system made by something incomplete. And honestly, I get why the theory fascinates people. If you only look at the worst parts of humanity, it's easy to wonder why reality can be so brutal. But I also think people sometimes forget there's another side to existence too. Because despite all the darkness humans create, there's also love, kindness, connection, art, laughter, empathy, and people helping each other for no reason other than compassion. And personally, I think most people who act cruel or destructive usually weren't born that way. A lot of terrible behavior comes from pain, trauma, fear, abuse, or damage people never healed from properly. Hurt people tend to hurt other people. That's why I can never fully buy into the idea that humanity is fundamentally evil or trapped in some hopeless prison reality. If anything, it feels more like people are struggling through suffering while still trying to find meaning and connection anyway. And honestly, that's kind of beautiful when you think about it. I've always liked the idea that underneath all the chaos, human beings are inherently good, deep down, even if life twists people in awful ways sometimes. Maybe everyone eventually finds peace in the end. Maybe whatever comes after death isn't punishment or judgment, but understanding, healing, reunion. So even though the demiurge theory is creepy as hell, I weirdly find comfort in believing that love and compassion are probably more fundamental to existence than fear ever was, because otherwise, none of the beauty in life would make sense at all. Story 21. Honestly, one of the funniest but also weirdly terrifying alien theories has to be the whole Vogon hyperspace bypass idea from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The basic concept sounds ridiculous at first. A bureaucratic alien race called the Vogons arrives at Earth only to announce that our planet is about to be demolished so they can build a hyperspace bypass for interstellar travel. Humanity panics thinking we're important enough to be invaded or conquered, but the reality is way worse. The aliens don't hate us, they just don't care. That's honestly what makes the idea stick with people so much. Earth isn't destroyed because humans are dangerous, special, or chosen. We're wiped out for the same reason humans bulldoze forests to build highways or shopping centers. Progress, infrastructure, convenience. Somewhere in the galaxy, there's probably just an exhausted alien office worker stamping paperwork while an entire civilization gets erased as a side effect. And the most horrifying part is the explanation the Vogons give. Apparently, the plans for the hyperspace bypass had been publicly available for years at some intergalactic planning office. So technically, humanity had plenty of time to object. We just never knew where to look. It's such a darkly funny idea because it turns cosmic destruction into meaningless bureaucracy, not some epic war for survival, just administrative indifference on a universal scale. Honestly, the older I get, the more believable that feels compared to dramatic alien invasion stories. If humanity ever encountered a civilization advanced enough to casually travel the galaxy, they probably wouldn't see Earth as sacred or important. We might just be standing where the parking lot needs to go. Story 22. Basically, the theory says ancient religions, paranormal experiences, UFO sightings, and supernatural encounters are all different interpretations of the same phenomenon viewed through different time periods. And honestly, I can see why that idea unsettles people so deeply, because it completely changes the nature of reality. Suddenly, UFOs stop being nuts and bolts spacecraft from another planet and become something far stranger. Intelligences that exist outside normal human understanding entirely. The theory claims that what ancient people called angels and demons are what modern society now labels aliens, because our culture interprets the unknown through science fiction instead of religion. The creepy part is how many stories overlap. Sleep paralysis encounters, abductions, prophetic visions, possession stories, beings appearing surrounded by light, telepathic communication, overwhelming fear or awe. People point to all these similarities, and start wondering if humanity has been encountering the same entities for thousands of years under different names. And then comes the existential part that really gets under people's skin, the fear that humans are insignificant, that we're tiny, temporary creatures living in a reality controlled by forces so far beyond us that our entire civilization matters as little to them as an ant colony matters to us. But honestly, I think the theory becomes darkest when people start believing human life has no meaning because of it. Because even if humanity is small in the grand scale of the universe, that doesn't erase the meaning people create for each other. Love, friendship, compassion, art, sacrifice. Those things matter because we experience them. A short life can still have value. Ants don't write music, comfort dying loved ones, or wonder about existence itself. Maybe the scariest thing isn't that humanity is small. Maybe it's that humans are capable of believing small means worthless. Story 23. The theory basically says Earth isn't a normal planet at all. It's a prison. Humanity isn't here to evolve, grow, or discover meaning. We're supposedly trapped here intentionally. According to the idea, human souls are being forced into repeated reincarnation cycles, while some higher intelligence keeps us confined to Earth like inmates serving endless sentences we can't remember. And the really creepy part is the memory wipe angle. The theory claims that every time people die, their memories get erased before they're sent back again, which is why nobody remembers previous lives clearly. Humanity just keeps reincarnating into suffering over and over while believing each life is its first. Wars, poverty, heartbreak, disease, loss, all part of the prison system, keeping consciousness trapped and emotionally exhausted. Some versions get even darker and say the light at the end of the tunnel people report during near-death experiences is actually part of the trap. Not heaven or peace, but some mechanism designed to lure souls back into reincarnation again instead of escaping. What makes the theory so effective psychologically is that it takes normal human suffering and gives it cosmic meaning. Suddenly, the unfairness of life isn't random anymore. It becomes evidence of a broken system. And honestly, the scariest part is the possibility that nobody in power here, governments, religions, billionaires, leaders, actually understands the truth either. Humanity could just be prisoners arguing over better cells, while something outside the bars controls the entire process. But weirdly enough, I think the theory also says something very human underneath all the horror. People desperately want suffering to mean something. Even terrifying explanations sometimes feel easier to accept than believing pain can simply exist without purpose. That's probably why theories like this stick with people so hard. Story 24. The whole idea of the dark city. The reason it gets under people's skin so much is because it doesn't describe aliens as physical creatures from another planet. It describes them more like predatory intelligences that exist alongside humanity in a hidden layer of reality. According to the theory, reality isn't just the physical world humans can see. There's supposedly another side to existence, overlapping ours. A kind of shadow ecosystem filled with entities that manipulate perception, consciousness, dreams, fear, and spiritual experiences. The dark city idea basically imagines this hidden world as something ancient and organized, existing just outside normal human awareness while subtly influencing humanity from behind the scenes. And honestly, what makes it terrifying is how close it feels. Not galaxies away, not millions of light years across space. Right here, around us constantly. The theory blends UFO phenomena, paranormal encounters, sleep paralysis, religious visions, demonic folklore, and interdimensional concepts into one giant, unsettling picture. Different cultures throughout history supposedly interpreted the same hidden intelligences in different ways. Demons, fae, shadow people, angels, aliens, but all describing encounters with something operating outside normal reality. The dark city part especially freaks people out because it suggests humanity's world might just be the visible surface layer of something much larger and stranger. Like civilization is happening inside a controlled environment while another reality watches from the edges. And the scariest possibility is that humans occasionally glimpse pieces of it accidentally. During altered states, near-death experiences, sleep paralysis, psychedelic experiences, or unexplained encounters where reality suddenly feels wrong for a moment. That's the kind of theory that turns ordinary existence into something deeply uncanny. Like the universe has hidden architecture humanity was never supposed to notice. And maybe sometimes we do anyway. Story 25. It's the absurd ones that make existence feel meaningless in the most humiliating way possible. I once heard a theory that the entire region around Earth, maybe everything inside the Oort cloud, is basically some isolated pocket universe running like a simulation, not a grand, divine creation, not an advanced scientific experiment, just some tiny artificial reality owned and supervised by an immature, cosmic loser. Imagine that being responsible for our entire existence is basically the interdimensional equivalent of a neckbeard living in his parents' basement somewhere in a higher reality. Humanity isn't part of some sacred plan or massive cosmic war. We're just background entertainment running on a forgotten machine while this entity wastes eternity screwing around with civilizations for fun. And honestly, the more absurd the theory sounds, the more existentially horrifying it becomes. Because humans desperately want existence to have meaning. Even terrifying theories usually give humanity importance somehow. Soul farms, prison planets, alien experiments. At least in those scenarios, we matter enough for something powerful to care about us. But this theory strips away even that. Imagine every human achievement in history, every empire, religion, scientific breakthrough, love story, tragedy, and war, all taking place inside what's basically some cosmic loser's abandoned sandbox project. Entire civilizations rising and falling while the simulation barely pays attention anymore because he's distracted, arguing with people online in a higher dimension. That's what makes it weirdly disturbing. Not evil, just pathetic. And if glitches, paranormal events, Mandela effects, or strange phenomena happen, they're not signs of deep spiritual truths. They're just bugs in badly maintained cosmic software. It sounds like a joke until you really think about how terrifying it would be if the universe had no higher purpose at all. Just a bored idiot behind the controls. Story 26. A lot of people jump straight to invasion scenarios or cosmic horror, but if an advanced civilization really has been observing Earth for thousands of years, then logically, we'd probably already be gone if they truly wanted us dead. Humanity is technologically primitive compared to what interstellar travel would require. Any species capable of crossing galaxies, manipulating space-time, or existing interdimensionally would have wiped us out long before humans even invented electricity if destruction was the goal. That's why I don't really buy the evil alien invasion stuff anymore. If they exist, maybe they're just watching. Maybe we're interesting to them somehow. Maybe humans are hybrids, descendants, experiments, or even future versions of ourselves traveling backward through time. Or maybe advanced civilizations eventually stop caring about conquest entirely because they outgrow the need for it. And honestly, The universe starts feeling less scary when you think about it that way. People assume unknown equals hostile, but most intelligent life on Earth doesn't destroy things for no reason. Humans study animals, preserve ecosystems, and observe species without annihilating them. So maybe advanced civilizations would look at humanity with curiosity more than hatred. At the end of the day, none of us really know what's out there anyway. Theories about aliens, consciousness, simulations, gods, dimensions, they're fascinating because they force people to confront mystery. But maybe mystery itself isn't something to fear. Maybe humanity's problem is that we always imagine the unknown through violence, because that's how humans historically solved problems ourselves. But the universe could be far stranger, calmer, and more complicated than simple good versus evil stories. And honestly, I think that possibility is way more beautiful than terrifying. Story 27. They're about humanity slowly building systems that become more controlling than anything extraterrestrial ever could. One thing that comes up a lot is the fear of global digital identification systems and how much power centralized technology could eventually give governments or corporations over ordinary people. The concern isn't really about convenience itself. Most people like convenience. It's about what happens when every part of human life becomes tied to one interconnected system. Identity, banking, communication, movement, healthcare, employment, access to services, all linked together digitally. Because once that infrastructure exists, people worry it becomes very hard to opt out. And history has shown that governments, regardless of country or political side, rarely give power back once they gain it. That's the part that unsettles people. Not necessarily some dramatic dystopian takeover overnight, but gradual normalization. Tiny compromises in the name of security, efficiency, safety, or convenience, until eventually, privacy and personal freedom start disappearing, piece by piece. What makes it hit harder than alien theories for some people is that this isn't cosmic speculation. It's human behavior we've already seen throughout history. Surveillance expands during crises. Emergency powers become permanent. Technology advances faster than ethics or laws can keep up with. And honestly, that's why a lot of people fear centralized systems more than extraterrestrials. Aliens are hypothetical. Human institutions with immense power are very real. At the same time, though, I think the important thing is balance. Technology itself isn't evil, and fear alone can make people see every change as apocalyptic. But healthy skepticism about power is probably necessary in any society. Once freedom is surrendered completely in exchange for comfort or security, getting it back is usually a lot harder than people expect. That idea has scared humans long before UFO theories ever existed. Story 28. The theory says humans were brought here from another planet a very long time ago as punishment for crimes committed by some ancient civilization. Basically, Earth isn't our home. It's a prison colony. And humanity has been trapped here for so many generations that nobody even remembers where we originally came from or what we supposedly did wrong. What makes the theory creepy is how people try to connect it to the weird things about humans compared to the rest of nature. Humans struggle with our own environment constantly. We get sunburned easily, have back problems from standing upright, suffer from mental stress unlike most animals, and seem weirdly disconnected from Earth's ecosystems despite being part of them. Some people look at that and think maybe humans evolved somewhere else entirely and were dumped here artificially. Then the theory gets darker. According to some versions, every attempt humanity makes to truly advance gets stopped intentionally. Wars, collapses, social division, unexplained disasters, all part of keeping the prison population controlled and confined to one planet. We're allowed enough technology to survive, but never enough to escape fully into space. And honestly, the most unsettling part is the idea that Earth might look beautiful while secretly functioning like a cage. Humans spend generations dreaming about the stars, building rockets, searching for other worlds, while something out there already decided long ago that we're never supposed to leave. Not because we're weak, because we're dangerous. That's what makes the theory stick in people's minds. It reframes humanity's violence, greed, and self-destructive behavior as evidence of some forgotten past, rather than random flaws of evolution. Like maybe the reason humans feel so restless all the time is because somewhere deep down, we subconsciously know this place was never meant to be home. Story 29, the farm theory, the zoo theory, the terraforming theory, they all kind of connect into the same horrifying idea that Earth isn't really ours. We're either being observed, cultivated, or unknowingly serving some larger purpose designed by something way more advanced than us. The zoo theory is creepy because it imagines humanity like animals inside a controlled habitat. Aliens don't openly contact us for the same reason humans don't walk into gorilla enclosures and start teaching them physics. We're being watched, studied, maybe even subtly guided, but never fully included. Then the farm theory takes it a step further. Humans aren't just being observed, we're resources. Maybe emotional energy, consciousness, genetics, labor, who knows? We exist because something benefits from our existence, the same way humans breed billions of animals for our own needs without thinking twice about it. But honestly, the terraforming angle might be the most unsettling to me. The idea that humanity itself could be engineered life designed to reshape Earth over thousands of years without realizing it. We cut down forests, alter the atmosphere, mine the planet, spread across ecosystems, wipe out species, and transform the environment constantly. What if humans aren't accidentally destroying the planet? What if that's literally our function? And then there's that infamous Reddit rabbit hole where someone supposedly started talking about engineered biological entities interacting with Earth before their account mysteriously vanished or got shadow banned mid-discussion. Probably just internet myth-making, honestly. But stories like that always hit differently because they play into this fear that humanity occasionally glimpses pieces of a much bigger truth before it gets buried again. That's what makes these theories so effective. They make human civilization feel less like the center of existence and more like part of some giant process we were never meant to understand. Story 30. It's the sheer scale of the universe itself. People talk about aliens like there would just be one species out there somewhere, but statistically that probably makes no sense. The universe is unimaginably huge. Trillions of galaxies, each containing billions of stars, with planets orbiting countless of them. If intelligent life exists at all, there could be thousands, millions, maybe even endless different forms of it, scattered across reality. And that's the part that gets overwhelming, because humans always imagine aliens through a very narrow lens, either peaceful enlightened beings or evil invaders. But real life is probably way messier than that. If the universe is full of life, then it's probably full of every possible kind of civilization imaginable. Benevolent species, violent species, ancient civilizations, hive minds, artificial intelligence. Things so strange humans wouldn't even recognize them as alive. Some could see humanity as fascinating. Others might see us as primitive animals. Others might not even notice us at all. And somewhere out there, statistically, there are probably things far worse than anything humans have ever imagined. That's what makes the scale itself so terrifying. The universe stops feeling empty and starts feeling crowded in a way humanity can't comprehend. Earth becomes one tiny point, floating in an ocean, filled with unknown possibilities, stretching infinitely in every direction. And humans have absolutely no idea what's really out there beyond the tiny fraction of space we've barely explored. But weirdly, I also think that same idea is kind of beautiful too. Because if the universe is truly that vast and alive, then reality is far stranger and more interesting than humans ever believed. Terrifying, sure, but also awe-inspiring. Humanity might be small, but we still get to exist in a cosmos filled with endless mystery. And honestly, I think mystery is part of what makes the universe feel alive in the first place. Story 31. Humans are basically genetically engineered hybrids created by extraterrestrials a long time ago. Not natural evolution exactly, but a modified species designed to survive on Earth while carrying alien traits hidden inside us. And honestly, the theory gets disturbing fast. According to the idea, aliens supposedly couldn't thrive on Earth's environment directly. So instead of invading traditionally, they altered early humans by mixing their own DNA into existing life on this planet. Humanity then became a kind of long-term colonization project, biological proxies slowly reshaping Earth over thousands of years without even realizing it. The scary part is the backdoor concept. The theory claims whatever created humanity also built hidden control mechanisms into the human mind itself. Basically switches that advanced beings can supposedly trigger instantly. Sleep paralysis, hypnosis, abduction experiences, missing time, all interpreted as evidence that humans can be shut down or manipulated remotely because our brains were engineered that way from the beginning, which honestly sounds insane until you think about how fragile human consciousness already is. Tiny chemical changes can completely alter perception, memory, emotion, or behavior. So, the theory imagines alien creators understanding the human nervous system on a level far beyond anything we do. But what really makes the theory creepy is how it reframes civilization itself. Humans spread across the planet, dominate ecosystems, reshape environments, domesticate animals, and push countless native species toward extinction. From this perspective, humanity becomes less like Earth's rightful inhabitants and more like an invasive species engineered to slowly take control of the planet on behalf of something else. Not through war, through inheritance. That's the unsettling part. The invasion wouldn't be coming someday in giant spaceships. According to the theory, it already happened thousands of years ago, and humanity itself is the result. Story 32, they're humans from the future, but not the advanced, godlike version of humanity people usually imagine. According to the theory, future humans are actually a dying species. After thousands or even millions of years of genetic modification, artificial evolution, cybernetic enhancement, and surviving in hostile environments, they've pushed their DNA so far from its original form that it's becoming unstable. Their species is slowly collapsing under the weight of its own evolution. So they come back here, not to conquer Earth, but to study us. The theory says modern human DNA might contain some kind of genetic holy grail they lost over time, a stable baseline they desperately need in order to survive. That's why so many alien stories supposedly involve medical examinations, genetic sampling, reproductive experiments, and obsession with human biology. They're not studying another species, they're studying their ancestors. And honestly, what makes the theory really unsettling is the paradox side of it. If these future humans interfere too much with the timeline, they risk altering the very future they came from. Every action could potentially erase them from existence completely. So according to the theory, their appearances in our reality are unstable and temporary, glitches in space-time, moments where they briefly phase into existence before the paradox catches up to them and snaps them back out again, almost like reality itself is rejecting them. That's why I honestly love this theory. It turns aliens from invaders into tragic figures. Imagine traveling across time, not out of curiosity or conquest, but because your species is dying, and the only hope left is buried somewhere deep inside your own forgotten past. And the creepiest part? If they really are us from the future, then every strange encounter might actually be humanity looking back at itself with regret. Story 33. People always imagine advanced aliens as taller, stronger, more imposing versions of humans. Massive ships, giant beings, cosmic gods towering over us. But what if intelligence doesn't work like that at all? What if the first truly advanced extraterrestrial civilization humanity encounters turns out to be tiny, like insect-sized tiny? And honestly, that idea becomes weirdly unsettling the longer you sit with it, because humans naturally associate size with power. We assume something small is weak or insignificant. But evolution already proves that's not true. Ants build massive underground civilizations. Bees communicate through complex systems. Tiny organisms survive conditions that would instantly kill humans. So imagine a species millions of years more advanced than us that evolved on a planet where being small was actually an advantage. Their technology could be incomprehensible. An insect-sized civilization would need microscopic engineering, hyper-efficient energy systems, insanely advanced materials, and completely different architecture than ours. Their spacecraft might be the size of dust particles. Entire cities could fit inside structures humans would mistake for debris. They might already be here, observing us constantly, without us even noticing. That's the creepy part. Imagine UFOs aren't giant ships crossing the sky, but microscopic probes scattered all over Earth, studying humanity the same way scientists observe bacteria in a petri dish. Humans wouldn't even seem intimidating to them because physical size stops mattering once technology reaches a certain level. And honestly, the psychological side of it is terrifying too. Humans are used to being the dominant large animals on Earth, but if a tiny species became more intelligent and technologically powerful than us, it would completely shatter our instincts about what superiority even looks like. The scariest thing might not be giant alien monsters descending from the heavens. It could be something so small we never even realize it's already here. Story 34. It's realizing how many bizarre, unexplained stories exist once you start digging into them. Before the internet, most people lived in this very controlled version of reality where the world felt predictable and normal. Then suddenly, you go online and discover decades of strange cases, disappearances, unexplained phenomena, military reports, bizarre eyewitness stories, and things like cattle mutilations that have apparently been happening for generations. And honestly, that realization alone is creepy. The cattle mutilation stories especially get under people's skin because of how weirdly consistent they are. Reports going back to the 60s describe livestock found with precise surgical-looking cuts, missing organs, drained blood, no signs of struggle, and sometimes no clear predator activity. Whether it's aliens, secret experiments, scavengers, or something else entirely, the fact that the stories kept appearing over decades across different places makes it feel unsettlingly persistent. What really freaks people out, though, is the atmosphere surrounding these cases. Remote ranches, dead silence, animals found in impossible-looking conditions, witnesses claiming strange lights or helicopters nearby, theories ranging from government programs to extraterrestrial biological sampling. It taps directly into that fear that something strange might be happening quietly in the background of normal life without most people noticing. And honestly, I think the internet amplified this feeling massively. Humans used to only know what existed within their immediate communities. Now we instantly see every strange event, conspiracy theory, leaked document, paranormal encounter, and unexplained mystery from all over the world. It creates this overwhelming sense that reality might be far stranger than we were raised to believe. Not necessarily evil, just not as simple and vanilla as people assumed growing up. And I think that realization alone is enough to make people uneasy sometimes. Story 35. One of the darkest alien theories I've ever heard is kind of an evolved version of the loosh theory, except instead of aliens feeding off human suffering for survival, they do it because they're bored. The idea is that these beings are unimaginably ancient, millions, maybe billions of years ahead of humanity, technologically. They've already solved every scientific problem, mastered reality itself, conquered death, crossed dimensions, seen every star system imaginable. At that point, normal existence stops meaning anything to them anymore. And that's where the theory gets disturbing. According to it, hyper-advanced civilizations eventually decay morally instead of technologically. They become so detached from ordinary life that empathy disappears completely. Other species stop feeling real to them. Humans become entertainment, toys, sources of novelty. The comparison people always make is the Hellraiser Cenobites, being so consumed by sensation and experience that pain and pleasure eventually blur together into the same thing. The theory imagines aliens like that, entities endlessly chasing stronger emotional experiences because infinite existence has numbed them to everything else. That's why some people tie the theory into abduction stories and cattle mutilations. Not scientific research, not exploration, sadism, curiosity twisted into cruelty after existing for so long that morality itself became meaningless to them. Humans aren't enemies. We're just interesting because we can still feel fear, confusion, suffering, hope, emotions these beings supposedly lost ages ago. And honestly, that's what makes the theory horrifying to me. Not hostile invaders wiping humanity out quickly, but something vastly older and more intelligent, treating Earth like a playground because eternity made them spiritually rotten. Like the final stage of civilization isn't enlightenment. Its decadence is so extreme, it becomes monstrous. Story 36. Aliens aren't actually physical beings traveling here from distant planets at all. They're supposedly from beyond the veil of human perception. Interdimensional intelligences that exist alongside us constantly, but only occasionally break into our reality in ways humans can briefly detect. And honestly, that theory feels way more unsettling to me than little green men in spaceships. Because it means these entities wouldn't be limited by normal physics the way we are. They wouldn't necessarily need ships, planets, or even bodies in the traditional sense. They could exist more like consciousness, energy, or something completely outside human understanding, occasionally slipping into our visible reality for moments before disappearing again. That's why people connect the theory to spiritual experiences, dreams, sleep paralysis, altered states, near-death experiences, and all the soul-harvesting concepts. The idea is that these beings interact with consciousness directly rather than physically. Humans only perceive fragments of them because our brains evolved to process a very narrow slice of reality. And honestly, that explanation weirdly fits a lot of strange phenomena better than physical reptilian invasion theories do. Ancient gods, angels, demons, shadow figures, UFO encounters, telepathic experiences. Suddenly, they all start looking like humans throughout history, trying to describe encounters with the same hidden layer of existence, using whatever language their culture had available at the time. What really unsettles me, though, is the implication that humanity may not fully understand what consciousness even is. If these entities exist outside normal space-time, then maybe the human mind itself is connected to something much bigger and stranger than modern science currently understands. The only thing that complicates the theory is the whole recovered craft angle. If these beings are entirely interdimensional, then why would they need physical vehicles at all? Unless the craft themselves are just temporary constructs, projections, or something our brains interpret physically because we can't comprehend what we're actually seeing. And honestly, that possibility might be even stranger than spaceships. Story 37. It was from one of those documentaries where a guy claimed he had been part of a NATO-connected special retrieval team dealing with crashed non-human craft. And according to him, the scariest part wasn't the technology. It was where they supposedly came from. The claim was that these entities weren't extraterrestrials traveling across galaxies at all, but something originating from within the Earth itself. Deep underground, ancient, hidden. Which honestly flips the entire alien narrative into something way more unsettling. Because space feels distant, the underground feels close. The guy also claimed the whole benevolent alien guide image people love talking about was supposedly a deception. According to his story, whatever these beings were, they weren't humanity's enlightened older brothers helping us evolve. He described crash sites involving mutilated or butchered human remains, implying encounters with these entities were violent and predatory rather than peaceful. Now, obviously, stories like that are impossible to verify, but they stick with people because they tap into a very primal fear. The idea that humanity isn't alone on Earth itself. Not out there, down here. It also connects weirdly well with all the underground mythology humans have carried forever. Hollow Earth stories, subterranean civilizations, demons beneath the earth, ancient underworlds, cave entities, serpent beings. Almost every culture has some version of legends involving intelligent things living below humanity. And honestly, that's what makes theories like this so effective psychologically. They take something humans already instinctively fear, deep dark places underground, and attach intelligence to it. Because if something advanced has been hidden beneath humanity this entire time, observing us from below while we stare upward into space, searching for aliens, that's somehow way more unsettling than spaceships. Story 38. Humanity was literally created in their image and has never actually been free. According to the theory, humans aren't a naturally evolved species at all. We were engineered by some higher intelligence that exists beyond normal space-time, operating from what people describe as a higher dimensional or 5D plane of existence. To them, time supposedly isn't linear the way humans experience it. past, present, and future, are all visible at once, meaning they can manipulate timelines, influence events across history, and shape civilization from outside our understanding of reality itself. And honestly, that's what makes the theory so disturbing, because if something exists outside time entirely, then human free will starts feeling questionable. Every war, religion, empire, revolution, discovery, and collapse could already be known, or even guided, by beings observing history the way humans watch a movie they've already seen before. The theory also says humanity is kept trapped through invisible control structures, not chains or prisons physically, but systems influencing consciousness itself. Governments, media, religion, economic systems, social division, all supposedly functioning like layers of programming designed to keep humans distracted, divided, and spiritually disconnected enough to never fully realize what they are. And the creepiest part is the created in their image angle, not in a loving biblical sense, but ownership. Humanity exists as extensions, experiments, or reflections of something vastly older and more powerful. The way humans create artificial intelligence or genetically modify organisms without considering them equals. That's what really unsettles people about theories like this. Not just the fear of aliens, but the fear that human civilization might only feel independent while existing entirely inside a system designed by something beyond our comprehension. Like every choice humanity has ever made already happened exactly the way it was supposed to, and we were never actually outside the cage to begin with.